And while you're waiting until we start, we have a couple of polls if you wish to check that.
Yeah, we in the actual panel session we have 3-question poll, very quick, very easy. Feel free to add to that. Help us with our market research.
That's right.
All right, we're 1 minute past the past 5:15, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, thank you for joining this panel. For those of us on the East Coast, I know it's a little bit late, so we'll try to keep it as fun as possible. So this is the Voice-Enabled Commerce panel. We will be discussing items like what is voice commerce, what is a connected consumer, how does the voice commerce actually work, in addition to just market data, some limitations, and then what's next. My name is Amar Ahmed. I am the Director of Billing Solutions over at Heartland Payment Systems, and along with me, we have Adrian Talapan, who's the co-founder and CEO of Fee Navigator. We'll kind of get into what Heartland and Fee Navigator do in our kind of a little bit more bio. So we wanted to kind of give a little bit more background in terms of, who we are. So myself, I again work with Heartland Payment System, which is part of the broader global payments organization, and I lead their billing solutions team as well as the Heartland for Service Professionals product line. In addition to that, I'm also part of the Nacha project team for voice commerce or conversational commerce, as you've also probably heard. I have, bottom left, you'll see just the New York City skyline. So that's where I was raised. I like to say New York City raised me, and then on the right is Atlanta, and Atlanta kind of shaped me. It's kind of where I live right now. And in Atlanta, I've worked across multiple different sectors in retail, banking, and healthcare. To the left, again, you'll see that I'm a Mets, Jets, and Knicks fan. It makes sense since I grew up in New York. Usually when I tell people that I'm a Mets, Jets, and Knicks fan, I get 2 responses. One is, I'm sorry. And the second response is, I made really poor life decisions when I was a child. But I'm loyal to the teams, and I still support them. And then right in the center is just me and my wife. We just celebrated our 2-year anniversary about a couple of weeks ago. So that's me in a nutshell. Adrian?
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrian Talapan. I'm a tech entrepreneur. So I've co-founded 4 companies. This is my 4th one. So in the various industries, Clarix was a drug development acceleration. So we ended up working with 7 of the top 10 and 15 of the top 20 pharma companies. HouseFix was a TechCrunch Disrupt finalist, and the Haystack was a big data play in healthcare, essentially pulling up the EMR audio logs and sifting through billions of records to identify patterns of user behavior. So what is Fee Navigator? Fee Navigator is the only self-serve enterprise-grade AI-powered service that helps acquirers, banks, and technology providers to instantly analyze merchant statements. So we basically help accelerate merchant acquisition and retention. The funky accent that you're hearing is from Romania. That's a picture over here on the top left. And I'm into soccer, so my team just won yesterday. That's Bayern Munich, won against Paris Saint-Germain in soccer, and I also like fishing. So with that, back to Amar.
Perfect. Thanks, Adrian. So we want to essentially, number one, just put a warning out there. This is a topic about voice commerce or conversational commerce. So we will activate your smart devices if you have any. So please be warned if we accidentally order anything, with your Amazon account, we apologize in advance. So what is voice commerce and how does it work? That's the first initial question that we want to ask, right? So voice commerce in itself is just the ability to leverage voice technology in order to give commands for smart assistants like Alexa, Siri, and Google to make purchases on our behalf. So when we look at voice commerce, we shouldn't look at it as oh no, it's like this new, it's like a new form of payments or it's a new form of commerce. You know, I look at it more as it's another channel of being able to make transactions, right? So similar to, you know, way back in the days when we had to go into the store and, you know, swipe our cards and to make a purchase, then online payments came about, then mobile wallets came about, right? Voice commerce is kind of that next evolution into the payment transaction experience, and how we actually will probably in the future leverage commerce for bill payments, for online shopping, etc. But you know, it's easy to say voice commerce is easy. You know, it's just me talking to a smart assistant. I think it goes more deeper into the technology behind it. Is something that, you know, a lot of us may not understand, and how it actually works, and why it's so difficult for it to actually kind of take hold and be what I call consistent. So Adrian, let's talk a little bit more about the technology behind voice commerce, and kind of just walk us through what it takes to actually build a solution.
Sure, Mark. So when people say AI, everybody understands different things. AI is really a marketing term that's all encompassing, and the technical term is really machine learning. And within machine learning, you have multiple branches. So you have unsupervised machine learning, where you tell the computer, hey, you know, here's a bunch of fluff. Can you group these things together in a way that makes sense? Supervised machine learning is when you train the machine. You basically say, okay, I have these inputs that mean this output. So, you know, when Google trains a bunch of videos, trains the machine to recognize cats in a bunch of videos, they do supervised machine learning. And then the latest thing is reinforcement learning. And that's when you basically tell the machine that, look, here are the rules of the game. And it's you know, you have to work with a sort of finite state, even though that state can be huge. But you say, okay, here are the rules of the game. You need to maximize this score, like play Atari games, for example. And then the machine will then play like millions of games, or millions of perform millions of repetitions to figure out essentially how to get there. And the way it gets there, it trains this neural net, which are layers of knobs that it adjusts going forward and backwards until it gets to the right thing. So when you think of like what the AI algorithm, essentially it's a neural net with trained weights that given an input, it knows how to get to the output. So you may also have heard about deep learning, which is you take machine learning and you apply a lot of data, and especially you apply a lot of layers. So instead of an input layer and an output layer in the neural net, you also have a bunch of hidden layers, and it can be from a couple to many. And on the right side here, when you tell your smart speaker, hey, do something. So in this case, turn on bedtime. So what happens is the machine listens to the wake word. I'm not going to say it because it's going to say something. So it's always listening for that wake word. When it hears that, it records the next part until you stop talking. It sends that waveform to the cloud, where it gets converted to text. The content, the meaning of what you're trying to achieve gets interpreted, and it performs the cloud. There are certain services that are being performed in the cloud, and then there are certain actions that are being triggered from the cloud to whatever device that you want. So in this case, change the temperature. So that's just, there's a lot to talk here, but this is a high-level overview. Back to you, Amar.
Yeah, and I think the craziest part about this entire aspect of it, right, is the fact that it can, to do all of that, turn your voice into text and then understand what you're asking and then give you a response back in a matter of seconds, right? It's not something that just keeps spinning and spinning. So, let's talk about what are the problems that we're solving for, right? But I think that there's even a question before we can even get into what problems are we solving for, right? It's who are we solving for? So there is you've probably heard in the industry this terminology. It's a new type of consumer, which is called the connected consumer, right? And the connected consumer is essentially a consumer who is essentially connected to information and connected to different aspects of their life, right? So whether it be I have access to the internet via my smartphone, my laptop, my tablet, social media is also part of connected consumer. So information and access to information and access to any sort of purchasing data is almost instant gratification. Like they need that right at their fingertips, right? We live in an environment right now with like Instagram stories and TikTok. We live in 10 to 15 seconds attention interval, right? If you can't catch my attention within 10 seconds or 15 seconds, I've already lost interest, right? So that's the type of consumer that we see is evolving, right? And these are the type of consumers who are really going to say, you know what, I really want to be able to leverage another form of, I don't want to log into a website or an app. I want to just tell, Siri or Google that, make this transaction for me. We always look at, in business, we always look at it and the term ROI, right? Return on investment. I think there's going to be a shift. And I did not coin this term. I read it in an article, but the shift is going to more return on interaction, right? So how can you better interact with your consumers to encourage them to make purchases, with your brand? So when we talk about use cases, one of the use cases that Heartland is actually working on and has a prototype that's developed is just around bill payments. And I look at bill payments as a low risk industry, right? Because ultimately, if you want to come in and pay my water bill or my gas bill, electricity bill, I will give you my Wi-Fi password, go right ahead and make that payment. What is bill payment, right? Bill payment's just essentially, if it generates a bill, if I get a water bill, if I get a gym membership bill, if I get a medical bill, right? I want to be able to make that payment through my voice assistant. So this is just one of the use cases that we have for, that Heartland is actually working on is, hey, Google, do I have any bills due? And it will send you a response naming the merchant, the amount. Also, if you have a card on file, do you want to pay this payment with the card ending in 1, 2, 3, 4? You make a response, yes. It will ask if you have a convenience fee account. It will ask, we will add a convenience fee of $3 to this transaction. And are you okay with it? It'll get confirmation again, and then it will basically send you a response of a successful transaction or a failed transaction with a details on where the receipt's going to go. So bill payments is a very, I would say, again, a lower risk in terms of using voice technology. And it's been implemented in some cases across the utilities industry. Adrian, can you discuss some other use cases where voice technology currently can be utilized and is being utilized?
Sure, and we'll talk later about the competition to voice commerce, but something that we can all imagine, many cars nowadays have voice recognition built in, and some actually have even one of these smart assistants built in. So what you can see here is driving home and you feel like a cup of coffee. You can simply ask your smart device. Today you can ask it like, hey, where is the closest Starbucks? And it will tell you. And maybe you can say like, okay, take me there, and maybe it updates your GPS. But in the example that you can see here, because it knows who you are and you're a trusted entity, and you have payment associated in your smart assistant account, you can even get that order completed automatically through an API. So it would be nice to drive home, and not only do you ask where's the closest Starbucks, the car figures out how far away you are from it, when to order. It asks what you want, and then essentially time it so that way by the time you get there, your drink is just about ready for you to pick up. So that's an example that we expect is going to be one of those common ones in the future with voice commerce. Another one is for us couch potatoes. So no longer do we want to use the remote. You can just sit on the couch and you know what I'm thinking about? I'm thinking about this sort of like this actor, this actress that played in this sort of movie. So in this case, Matthew McConaughey and Interstellar, and then essentially make the purchase without using the remote altogether. Again, it's all about the convenience, and all these extra, seconds that you save matter. If you add them all together, you end up with a lot. So we expect this is another use case in the future. And of course, this has happened. So this is the title of an article that some kid ordered a bunch of dolls, and the parents had to say, stop, that was a mistake. So this is already here.
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's it kind of segues. We'll discuss what the limitations are with voice assistants, because consistency and understanding, making sure that you're not ordering the wrong thing, is definitely something that we've heard in the marketplace as a limitation of adoption, which we'll get to later on the slide. So let's maybe just talk about some market data, right? And what is the utilization of voice assistants? And when I looked at this, Adrian, it made sense, right? Smartphones 57%, tablets 29%. Laptop, desktop, speaker, right? All in the high 20s, right? What surprised me though was really around the wearables. Now with the iWatch and Samsung Watch, right? Or the Galaxy Watch, that the wearables are actually on the lower end of utilization for voice assistants, even above the TV remote, right? So what do you think are potential reasons for why wearables are lower on the spectrum for voice assistance utilization?
I think part of it is that you require a data plan for the wearable device to be fully connected. I think that's really a big part of it. And the other part of it is, there has to be more use cases applied to voice commerce, to voice in general, for these wearables to take over. But I was surprised as well. I was expecting this number to be higher.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's interesting, right? So as you look at the wearables industry and you look at the utilization of it, it's not just about ease of access, right? Because you do have ease of access. It's about the cost associated to it as well, right? So if I have to pay in order to use this assistant, then this feature is actually useless to me, right? Where I can't perform any sort of commerce functionality without a data plan. So what about coverage? The percentage of adults in the USA who use voice commerce, right? Talk to me about, what do you see here, the trend, and then anything that kind of just surprises you?
Yeah, so fully expected the youngsters to be using all these smart devices and smart assistants. So 18 to 29 totally makes sense. 30, 44 totally makes sense. What surprised me initially when I looked at this is 60 plus. Actually, I did not expect that percentage to be as high as it is. And and then if you take a step back and you look at it, as you get older, you start having issues with your eyesight. Technology is getting simpler on one hand, but it gets, with all these services being put together to produce certain interactions, it's actually more complex than just clicking a button. So I think voice smart assistants can make the interaction a lot simpler. And especially if you're just looking for something like, hey, reorder me toilet paper, or reorder some soap. You don't have that much specificity in your order, and you can refer back to things that you've ordered in the past. So I think as we move forward, the 60 plus adoption will increase even further, because voice commerce is still in its infancy. But yeah, that was a pleasant surprise, I should say.
Yeah, so same for me, right? I mean, I look at as you grow older, right? It's funny. I've seen so many videos on like America's Funniest Videos, but I've seen my parents do it because my entire house is all Google. So my lights, my front door, everything is controlled by a smart assistant. And my parents would just sit there and they'll just be like, "Hey, Google," and then they will try to get their train of thought going. By that time, Google stopped listening, and then they'll say what they want to do, and it doesn't respond, and they get frustrated. So, yeah, it is interesting. But what about feedback? After using voice purchasing.
Yeah, so on my side, I have them all. So the only one I don't have in this office is Google. So I can say all, "Hey Google, I'm Art. What are you doing?" So to the question, right? When you look at this distribution, it's basically 3/3, right? So I enjoyed it, I used it, I liked it, I use it and I don't like it, and I'm kind of in between. So what it shows is that voice purchasing is, again, in its infancy. It's there are more applications, more killer applications that would have to be created for people to really use this, and to really create the kind of interactions that are addicting and people really want to use them. So one area of AI that's evolving at a fast pace is smart chatbots with conversational, just having conversations with folks. So you kind of layer that with like simple commands to get something, and I think these interactions are going to get better. But I'm not surprised that a third of the people found that voice purchasing is not all that right now. And the ones living on the leading edge, the 34.9% that enjoy the experience, I'm sure will enjoy even more in the future.
Yeah, I think the chatbot piece is crucial, right? Because that kind of leads into that conversational aspect of AI. And as you know, I don't know if anybody got a chance to see Google's their developer conference that they had last year, where they introduced their Google Assistant, but not the Google Assistant that you're thinking about. It's literally they're using the Google Assistant to be your own concierge, where you can make like hair appointments and call a local salon, and it can actually have a conversation with the person, and choose the time and etc. To make an appointment for their hair salon. So it's pretty interesting stuff with what's going on, especially in the advancement of AI. So, let's just talk about numbers, right? Because that's also important, right? It's the technology, everything else, the user experience is important, but then how does this impact our economy, right? And how does this impact our growth? So it is estimated that by the end of 2020, the voice commerce market in itself would be a $15.6 billion market. In the next 5 years, by 2025, the estimate jumps up to 35.5 billion. So it is starting to trend up, and it is becoming something that is going to become part of our maybe our daily life. COVID is a perfect example, right? More and more, as with social distancing is occurring, we're more and more seeing the request for contactless payment. But what is contactless payment, right? Because if I enter my chip card, I still, for EMV reasons, I might still have to enter my zip code. So I'm still touching the terminal. So what is true contactless payment? And this is kind of where voice assistant and voice commerce really can hopefully kind of fill that that user need, right?
And Amar, let me ask something here, which is,
Yeah.
you know, there's Amazon, they're the typical voice assistants, right? But like Amazon AWS offers frameworks that you can create your own smart assistant. It's going to take more effort, but you can do something like that. So there's also going to be applications that are fully branded, built on like Amazon Polly and, you know, Lex. What you're seeing here is 5.6 billion. We don't have the split between Amazon, Google, Siri, and you know, the smaller ones, but it will be interesting to see what Amazon's role is in here. And when you see 35 billion, again, Amazon has the upper leg here because it has the whole e-commerce associated with it. You know, you can order from with Siri, you can order movies, you can order digital tools. Same thing with Google, but it's not as well integrated. So once again, it's one of those things that as things become more and more digital, looks like Jeff Bezos is going to get it more and more right.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because Amazon currently leads the industry in terms of market share for smart speakers. So kind of makes sense because more and more people would rather just, you know, order through Amazon because it does have a marketplace. So, you know, we talked about this a little bit earlier in terms of limitations. I want to kind of dive a little bit deeper into the, you know, the roadblocks to adoption, right? The voice commerce, like Adrian stated, is still in its infancy. We see use cases occurring, like, you know, with different utility companies that are trying to adapt to it. We saw kind of just conversational, not necessarily like conversational voice assistants earlier in Peter's from US Bank, his panel, but interoperability, right? So I am a iPhone, MacBook, iPad user, but my entire house is Google, right? But if I need devices if I have to set up let's say my lights to be controlled by a smart assistant, I actually have to do a completely different user experience on my Google than on my Apple. And then it's completely different on Amazon, right? So you have to basically choose an ecosystem in order for stuff to work, right? So that is currently definitely a huge roadblock. Now, Amazon, Google, and Apple have entered into a Zigbee alliance with Zigbee Alliance in December of 2019 to try to resolve that issue and kind of try to create an industry standard. But that actually is one of the biggest roadblocks in terms of user adoption. The second piece that I'll kind of talk to is consistency, right? How many times have we basically said, you know, hey, Google, turn off the lights. And then it just spins and it says, I don't understand what you're asking. Hey, Google, turn off the lights. I don't understand what you're asking. And then eventually you're just like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just get up and turn off the lights, right? So consistency is something that the smart assistants also need to essentially work on. And I think they'll get there once the machine learning piece evolves. So I guess, Adrian, why don't you kind of hit on the privacy and trust and security, because, you know, that also is a huge concern for a lot of our users.
Yeah, and I think so. It's funny. I remember when you were still chairman at Google, Eric Schmidt said that privacy, get over it. There is no privacy or beyond that. And you know, you have the U.S. Regulatory environment, and then you have the European regulatory environment. And my previous business was in healthcare, so I'm fully aware of HIPAA privacy rules, high tech, the teeth in healthcare, privacy. And you know, when Alexa came on, it was such a novelty. It was like, it's kind of cool. Like, yeah, like, look, you can do this, and now you can do this, and you can add a bunch of skills, and now you can turn on the lights. How great, right? And you kind of take things as granted that it's trusted, but you don't know for sure, right? So I want to talk about both privacy and security. So privacy is privacy relates to a trusted entity that you bring inside your home, and you expect it to follow the rules of your home. and just behave nice. And so if you tell your child, hey, this is information that stays in the house, you expect that the child is not going to go out there and tell all their friends like, hey, but then they do that. So, so privacy, as you can see here on the right, on the chart, as we understand more about this technology, as we adopt more of this technology, we become more concerned of, well, do we want to get all these benefits, and what are the risks? Are we okay to have a potential reduced privacy level? How well do we trust these devices that they don't share data? And you may have heard a couple of years ago there were actually all these smart assistants were caught essentially recording audio without the user knowing, and it was for development. And then since then they've updated the rules, so you have to actually opt in to let them listen in more to develop their product. And with them always listening for the wake word, in theory, and you'll see that in security, in theory, they could be the star witness in any sort of situation. But when it comes to privacy and trust, when you buy a smart assistant, you really should take a moment and decide where you want to place this thing, and kind of like keep in mind that it could hear, right? And it could do things that you may not want to. So do you bring it to your bedroom? Do you bring it to your office? Do you bring it to your car? So you want to look at the pros and cons of having smart assistants do things for you, and are you okay with the risk of potential sensitive information going out there? Now, by default, that should not really be a concern if you trust Amazon, Apple, and Google. But there's the security part, which deals with keeping the bad guys from entering your home, right? So by adopting these smart devices, are you inviting fraud? So, since it's listening all the time, can somebody hack them, and instead of sending that waveform to Amazon directly, send it to a middle layer to the hacker's device, and then the hacker device sends it to Amazon. So, but just by doing that, they get to see everything that's happening, and it's a concern. If you look at wiring voice commerce, e-commerce into this, you also have to worry about, well, what about the credit card? The good thing is that the payments industry has evolved a lot, and probably there are mechanisms in place to deal with it. But whenever you bring something smart, even like a digital lock that you can remotely, you can remotely unlock your house. You can tell Alexa that, hey, I have a friend at the house, I'm not home, let him in. So, hey, Alexa, open the door. You have to be comfortable with the risks that you're taking. So it's easy to buy these devices. It's easy to turn them on and play with them. But before you do that, just make sure you understand the privacy and security concerns. And in Europe, GDPR has higher requirements than in the US in terms of privacy. And you also you may be liable for severe fines if you do something you shouldn't do.
So Adrian, I think we're hitting right at our mark. So I apologize that we may not be able to get into the questions, but we want to close it off. And if you have any questions and you want to ask those questions that are in the chat, please feel free to ask us. Just directly message us or set up some time on the side during this conference. But one thing that I will say is innovation is key, right? Consumer behaviors can change instantly. And we can say that, hey, voice commerce is a fringe technology. It's just in its infancy stage. But you look at a clear example of Blockbuster and Netflix. That's the story, right? Netflix was valued at $194 billion in April of 2020, more than Disney, right? And Blockbuster is out of business. You look at Tesla, where Tesla was. Tesla was this, oh, nobody's going to go electric, right? Now everybody's trying to go electric. You have Rivian, Lucid, Mercedes is trying to go electric, right? So we need to continuously keep working on innovation and trying to work to solve these problems that we see are barriers to entry for voice commerce. So with that said, I know that there's another session that's going on and folks are going to have to drop off. So again, please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, and we'll try to get back to any of those individuals who've asked a question. And again, thank you for joining us. If you need more information about Fee Navigator or Heartland, please visit Heartland's exhibitor page, or please reach out to Adrian directly on Fee Navigator. Adrian, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Amar. Thank you, everybody. So yeah, if you have any questions about AI and you're really using technology to make your life easier, definitely please reach out to me, Adrian@feenavigator.com.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, everyone.